What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the PlayTheVinyl Podcast, the very first episode. In these podcasts, I'm just really going to talk about what I've been listening to. Not really going to review things. I'm going to try to keep the reviews for the blog and the writtens. On this side of things, I'll do some micro reviews, but really just talk about what's been in rotation. Maybe give some recommendations, and really just try to chat with you guys. So really a topic I wanted to talk about today, something I've been thinking about is kind of the concept between creativity and execution, or in rap, instead of execution, a lot of people say delivery. Because recently, like 3 albums I've been listening to, I was listening to Veteran a lot. I mean, I'm a huge JPEG Mafia fan, but I listened to All My Heroes or Cornballs more than Veteran for a very long time, and recently I just transitioned into Veteran. So Veteran, I discovered Phoebe Bridgers. I believe her album is called Punisher. Let's see, Phoebe Bridgers. Yeah. I'm listening to Punisher, mainly off there, listening to the single Kyoto that came out. That came out before the album. I'm very late to this. What else have I've been listening to? Just today, I finally got around to listening to the E album from Eco 2K, which was very interesting. And throughout the summer, throughout the past 3-4 months, maybe longer, I've really been listening to In the Airplane Over the Sea, learning the guitar to that. So, and I also listened to Last Year Was Weird Volume 2, by, sorry if I'm saying this wrong, Takei Meidza. But, when I listen to these albums, there's a balance between really creativity and execution. So some albums you can listen to, and they'll be creative as hell, but you'll it won't be intriguing, because, or not even intriguing. The first listen through could be fun, but you'll never revisit it because, well, maybe it's not musically catchy, or maybe it just doesn't have any songs or hooks, or even lyrical verses that you'll want to return to, because for whatever reason, there's some songs that you could play in the car on a car ride, and there's some songs that you can only play listening to with your headphones on, reading the lyrics, or really just focusing on the art itself. And there are a lot of albums I could name off that I've listened to that I did enjoy the first time, but I haven't revisited them because they were very creative, but push comes to shove, I'm gonna revisit albums that I could sing along the hook to, or that have a little bit of a dance vibe to them, or not necessarily lighthearted, because I really don't listen to a lot of pop generic trap. But I like albums I revisit, like I said, I've been revisiting Veteran a lot. I've been revisiting even All My Heroes or Cornballs. Daytona is an album I revisit a lot. These are all albums that have great technical execution and have great song structure and are just memorable, and songs that you want to go back and listen to. So, for example, I go back and some albums I really haven't revisited because, although they were great, I'm just not gonna go and give an hour and a half of my time to them again. What was it called? Lift Your Skinny Fingers. Yeah, Lift Your Skinny Fists Like Antennas to Heaven, by Godspeed You, Black Emperor. I did enjoy that album. I'm not as crazy about it as other people are. I know it has like a cult following. I get the whole the whole post rock hypnotic loop type thing. However, I didn't find the loops that hypnotic. I found them just kind of loud, and they did convey emotions, but it wasn't comforting emotions. Anyway, they made me uncomfortable. Another one, the Glow Part 2. that I listened to recently by the Microphones. Again, that album maybe I'll revisit one day. Probably not gonna go back and listen to it anytime soon or listen to it in the car in a car ride. What else have I've listened to? A long time ago, I listened to the Hospice by the Antlers. That was one. Again, very very heavy album. Don't see myself revisiting that. Although it was great, it was a little redundant, but it was a production wise and the way it was engineered, it was really easy to listen to. And lastly, that I can recall, an album that I listened to that a lot of people do consider great and that I consider great as well, but that I'm not going to revisit, is Car Seat Headrest's Twin Fantasy. Now, vocal performances on that album were amazing. Songwriting was incredible. But I don't think I personally, I'm going to go back and listen to like the 14-minute long tracks on that album that, when I could listen to something like a lot easier to listen to, a lot lighter. Maybe one day I will be in the mood to listen to Twin Fantasies, which I hope I am, because that's it was really beautifully composed. But again, these are heavy, heavy, heavy albums. However, though, what makes me think about this is, there are heavy albums out there. Hospice is a big one. Like I just said, Twin Fantasy. If you're going rap, what's it, like a really heavy hip hop album that's out there? Maybe like the latest Mike album, or I don't know if it was an album or a mixtape. Maybe the last, Weight of the World. I revisit that sometimes too. That's a little, it's light enough for me to go back to. Let's see, in terms of rap or hip hop, I don't know. I feel like hip hop is quite like has a lot of revisitable albums or albums that I go back and listen to on my free time. Maybe it's because rap is my favorite genre, but I'm thinking most likely it's because rap is the way that rap's production is right now mostly. A lot of stuff that you listen to is catchy. Heavy or not, you listen to Peggy and it's like his subject matters are heavy ish. He can get very political, but he does tend to keep it light and airy with his charisma, and that's another thing. Like rap music has charisma like no other. So really, I can't name one off the top of my head, but I wanted to compare albums like Twin Fantasy or the Godspeed You, Black Emperor album that I mentioned before, and really compare it to an album like Some Rap Songs, because Some Rap Songs is excels at what it is because it is a very creative album, and Earl delivered a message very concisely, if that's a fucking word, very concisely, very precisely as well. Maybe that's the word I should have used. But just delivered his message so everyone can understand it, which I think is why no matter because that's obviously a very Afrocentric. It's a very Black Power album, but no matter your race, no matter whatever, I feel like hip hop fans or underground hip hop fans more so, they love that album whether you're white, black, or whether what he's saying directly relates to your culture or not. The creativity on that album is appreciated so much, and his execution, it's a rap album, so I'm just gonna call it delivery, and his delivery is so on point that it's it is most likely my favorite album of all time at this point. But the way he approached the topic, and the way he approached the abstract of the album and delivered his message through that so that everyone can understand, I think that sets Some Rap Songs apart from let's say the album I listened to today. the E album from Eco 2K. I was listening to that album and I was thinking, I was like, wow, this is really, really, really creative, you know. And I know people revisit that album. I know, like, when I go on Instagram, I see, you know, pages post what's in rotation, or like what's in the community's rotation. I see that album a lot, so I decided to visit it. And after I listened to it, I'm like, I'm not gonna revisit this. Not that it's a heavy album, but it's just like, you know, the creativity was there, but the execution and delivery wasn't necessarily there. You know, I mean, I think of In the Airplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel, and I see plenty of creativity balanced with, you know, the sticky melodies and kind of the basic like chord progressions and the catchy hooks. And although his verses, you know, Jeff's verses say a lot, and they have some dark meanings to them, it's still kept in a light and airy way, so you could go back and listen to it. And I listen to that album almost every day. I enjoy it a lot. You know, so there is a certain type of balance between it. Like, if an album wants to be the best, you know, the best of all time, or wants to be the best at what it is and what it's doing, I feel like there has to be a balance between the creativity and execution or delivery. Perfect example of that is Mad Villainy. You know, I mean, for what it was at the time, it still probably is the most creative rap album out there. I mean, for me, it would be the most creative rap album until I listened to Veteran and All My Heroes Are Chrome Balls, and even some rap songs competes with it in terms of creativity. But Mad Villainy, for what it was at the time, is definitely could be considered like the most creative rap album of all time, and that's why everyone loves it. But it's also because Doom and Madlib's delivery and execution was understandable. It's, you know, I could go back to that album, I could bob my head to it, and I could listen to it, have fun. I could listen to it in the background of something that I'm doing. I don't have to sit down for, you know, I saw an album, I don't know, Fantana reviewed it, and it was like 3 hours, and I started playing the music, and it's just like noises, and I'm cool with that. Like, I love noisy industrial music, but for 3 hours long, I don't see how I can be intrigued for that. So, like I said, Mad Villainy is a perfect example of that, because Doom doesn't necessarily say things that everyone can understand. You know, that album, I feel like, does have some of his more straightforward songs on it. You know, like Accordion, which is probably my favorite Doom song. Which is so generic because it is like fairly straightforward, but I find his wordplay, his rhyme schemes, the beat are all fantastic on that. And throughout the album, it's like that. You know, you have these weird type of comic book, television, radio samples going on, which the average person like isn't necessarily drawn to. But if I showed someone Accordion or Curls, all caps, even Fancy Clown, even if I showed them like America's Most Blunted, just if I, you know, it would draw them towards the album, because there's a difference between listening to someone, you know, try to be creative and really have a creative, and like use an album as a total creative outlet, and then having someone use an album as a musical creative outlet. I feel like there's a difference. So like, in terms of what I've listened to recently, I mean, I found that Phoebe Bridgers did a very good job on that in Punisher. Although I hear a lot of Taylor Swift in her, I find that she's risen above, you know, comparisons to Taylor Swift, because, you know, they obviously have the same kind of pop folk elements to them, but the aesthetic that Phoebe Bridgers brings, and the lyrical substance, and the topic matters that she's speaking about, although it's not conscious, or it's not you know, it's not reflective on anything, but the way that she approaches these type of love songs, and whether it's breakup, makeup, she approached it in a different way than most female pop singers would, and she does it in a very catchy way. Her background music, her production is very clean, structured, very just very catchy. And to move on, I feel like the perfect example that most people can relate to who listen to the underground music scene. You have JPEG Mafia, which is really I'm trying to name someone else, but I think he's the perfect example of balancing that creativity with musicalness. With being able to revisit with execution and delivery in a musical manner. There's a reason why so many people love him. Is because when you turn on Veteran, you listen to it for the first time, and you hear this weird, again, 1539 North Calvert is one of his easier tracks to listen to, which is why it's his most listened to track. But it's still not typical. It's still not mainstream at all. There's nothing about that beat that you would hear in any other artist. Yet the way he delivers things with his very East Coast flow, with like the rash, controversial lyrics that he's using, again, that complements the creativity of the rest of the music. But the way he's saying it, his flow, his delivery, his cadences, it draws you back to listen to that song. And as you go through the album, you realize that there is so much creativity there, but every single component of that album, every single component of every song that's going on, there's a certain there's a catchiness to it. Whether it's my thoughts on Neo-Gaff dying, is I don't care, and that's all he's saying is I don't care constantly. But there's still a beat to it. There's still a rhythm. There's still a catchiness. Another example. I mean, I Cannot Fucking Wait Till Morrissey Dies. That song is just it's creative as hell. What he's talking about. It's like no one else in the rap game would make a song called I Cannot Fucking Wait Till Morrissey Dies, but the beat, his cadences, it catches your ear, so you come back to it. So I feel it's just an interesting topic I've been thinking about. I've been thinking about, because I almost feel guilty because I listen to these great albums, I never go back and listen to them. I also listen to, is it Arcade Fire by Funeral? I think it's Funeral by Arcade Fire I listen to, and I'll revisit some songs off of that one because it's a little, lighter, but I didn't want to feel guilty about this, but I feel like it's a serious thing because, when you look at people's ratings, if you watch, someone like Fantano, or if you're on Instagram and you see reviewers, you listen to an album one time and it's great, people give it a 10, and I think Fantano actually does keep this in mind, which is really nice. But if it's an album that is extremely creative, but doesn't have the execution, it'll be 7, 8, 9 if you're gonna rate it, because you have to give credit where credit's due when someone comes in with a pioneer attitude to their album. But if it doesn't have that execution, if it doesn't have that the delivery, the catchiness, I feel like you just can't give it a 10. Which is why perfect albums off the top of my head would be Neutral Milk Hotel with In the Airplane Over the Sea, some rap songs. I think I'm moving towards either Veteran or All My Heroes or Cornballs being a 10. Probably Veteran just for what it was at the time. I mean, it's not like it released in 2005 being what it is, but to be really the first rapper to make an album like that, with that much glitchiness, really with that much glitchiness, I know there have been other hip hop glitch albums like Death Grips or whatever, but with that much glitchiness and that much catchiness and that much of like a revisit replayable value, I'd really have to give that album a 10. Mad Villainy is a 10, just for the reasons I said earlier. Possibly Food by MF Doom as well. That could be another 10 if you really think about it. I wouldn't give Victor Vaughn a 10. I wouldn't give like, what the heck's it called? Dead Mouse? Danger Doom. Not Dead Mouse. Danger Doom. I wouldn't give Danger Doom a 10. Again, because they're the replayability, the replay value of them isn't high enough for me to really go back and listen to them a bunch. A lot of people don't consider replay value an essential thing when rating an album. However, I do. Yeah, and that's really what I wanted to talk about. Because in hip hop and in experimental music, it is tough. It's tough to find albums, or it's tough to find albums that catch your ear and are easy on the ear to listen to. But hey, everyone has a different taste. So I think I'm going to end this here. I think 20 minutes is a good run time to really do these. I'll do them once or twice a week. I'm tiring out talking to myself for 20 minutes, so I can't imagine what you guys are feeling like. Next week I'm gonna rethink the topic more. I'll come a little lighter hearted. Today I was just kind of trying to get used to this, ramble a little bit, to see how you guys receive it. And I'm going to say that's it for this week. So thank you guys so much for listening to the PlayTheVinyl Podcast. Find me on Instagram at PlayTheVinyl with periods in between each word, because the regular PlayTheVinyl was taken, asshole. And keep up with the blog. And on my Instagram, I'll post when the next podcast is out. And that's it. Just keep on listening to music. I want to hear your thoughts about the topic that I talked about today, and I want to hear your thoughts on the last review I did, which was Kabwasa. His name's Kabwasa's debut album, Made in Flight. I think the next thing I'll do, I honestly might be late to the party and do Phoebe Bridgers' Punisher, or I'm thinking Detroit 2, which is something I wanted to talk about today too. Oh man, I just wanted to point out that Detroit 2 was a perfect example of that. Of Big Sean, it was his most creative album in my opinion, but it still wasn't that creative, so it's not that intriguing. But his delivery was fantastic. I thought his delivery, his execution was really good. But the lack of creativity also, to kind of flip it around, the lack of creativity is probably why I'm not going to be revisiting it that much. I liked some of the skits, I liked the vibe that it had. But it's still Big Sean. Just like if you go to listen to J. Cole album, like it's great. You could bump to it, but it's just it's still a J. Cole album. And then you look at Kendrick Lamar. He's a perfect example. To Butterfly is a 10 for a reason, because it's creative as shit. And he got his message delivered well, and I could go back and listen to that album whenever I want. But anyway, thanks guys for tuning in, and see you next time.